on the News Channel 5 network. This is Open Line.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us for Open Line tonight. We have another great guest to bring you amidst this COVID-19 pandemic that we're all kind of wading through right now. Dr. Alex Jahangir. You've seen him just about every day if you're watching Metro Nashville's press conferences. The doctor is in charge of the Metro Task Force when it comes to the coronavirus. I'd like to welcome him here right now. Dr. Jahangir, thank you for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me. It's really a pleasure.
Absolutely. You have been a very busy guy for, almost 2 months now, dealing with this coronavirus every day as head of the Metro Board. And I just really want to just dive right in. When we look at those numbers every day and we talk about this is the confirmed case count, whether we're talking about Davidson County or the state, and the number of people who died and the number of recovered, those are a lot of numbers, and they're the same numbers to throw at people every day. But what are the numbers that you are really honing in on that mean something to you as a doctor?
Sure. So, I think it's important to say that the reason we throw these numbers out from the get-go is when Mayor Cooper asked me to take this role, one of the things that he really advocated for, and I completely agree with, is transparency with our community. This is something none of us have ever dealt with before. Mm-hmm. And so some of us are learning these numbers all at the same time. So the numbers I throw out every morning or announce every morning is of Davidson going to be 2,088. Additionally, the other numbers I look at are how many people have died from this disease, and I hate to jinx ourselves, but I'm very fortunate in Davidson County to keep the number low at 22. Mm-hmm. But things I look at, you hear me talk about recovered and active cases, and what that is if somebody has been has tested positive for the disease, if they have to go 7 days, 3 of which they have to not have any symptoms to say that they're recovered. Typically by 14 days, you've completely recovered or you've passed away. So typically by 14 days, almost everyone we test positive becomes a recovered or a fatality. So those numbers are important to watch to make sure that our cases are going up or not going up, or hopefully they're stable, or to make sure that if there's a really fast rate of growth, we need to get a sense of what's going on. What's really important that I don't mention is every one of these cases are within 24 hours called and contacted by one of our wonderful public health officials, and they do something called contact tracing. So they literally will call these individuals, find out, try to get a sense of where they got it from. This is the way we identify what we call clusters. So if all of a sudden somebody was at a school function or some event together, that's how we first identify that, hey, all these people have been infected. Then they will find out who's been in their inner circle and call those individuals to make sure that they're not feeling ill, or maybe recommend that they get tested. Beyond that, once somebody's in quarantine, we'll check in with them sometimes daily to make sure that they're doing okay in quarantine and that they're actually abiding by the quarantine. So there are a lot of numbers we don't actually throw out there that are important as well, but those are kind of just a really quick glimpse of some of those numbers.
I want to remind folks that this is Open Line. If you want to call in, go ahead and do that now. The phone lines are almost completely open. We have one caller on the line. I'll get to you in just a moment here. But this is your chance to ask a doctor involved in this coronavirus pandemic questions that you are dying to know, questions that you want to get figured out and get to the bottom of. The number is on your screen. 615-737+ is the number to call right now. We're going to get as many questions taken today as possible. Before we can get to your calls, I'm going to ask a few more of my own. We've heard locally, we've heard federally, the push for testing, doctor. And I just have a question about that. Of course, testing is great to figure out if you have it or not, but I could get tested today and then go to the grocery or go anywhere, come to work, and then have contact with the virus and get it. So I guess, why is the messaging so clear that testing will show us whether we're doing good in this fight or not?
So a superb question. So if you get tested, if we test just from a pure public health standpoint, test the entire community, you will get a sense of the prevalence of the disease, meaning how many people, how much of this disease in the community. As you pointed out, a lot of people carry the disease, they don't even know it, so they're asymptomatic. So there's the argument that we should test everyone And and the governor mentioned that not that long ago. And now in our community assessment centers, I say, if you're worried about disease, come and get tested. The problem with that is exactly what you mentioned. The recommendation is once you get tested, you need to be self-isolating until you have your disease or you have your diagnosis, either with the disease or without. And so I think it's important for if you have any concern about this virus, come get tested. And so some of the things that would give you concern are fever, chills. Chills actually, believe it or not, came out today. So if you have chills without fever, that's CDC recommended that today. Shortness of breath, cough, loss of smell, which I found very fascinating. Diarrhea. There's more receptors for this virus in your GI tract than actually your respiratory tract. And headache now is one. My mom this weekend had headache and chills with no fever, and I took her for a test. So this hits home as well, right? And so the other thing you worry about is if you've had that close contact, or you're worried that somebody you're with has maybe have become infected, then I recommend you get tested. But from a public health standpoint, just testing the community to get a sense of what's out there is a great way to have a sense of the prevalence.
Okay, very good. Let's get to the calls. William is going to be up first today. William, thanks for being part of Open Line. What's your question tonight?
My question is, well, I want to explain my situation.
Sure.
I have a small business in Nashville with 16 employees. We're separated on 2 floors. Each floor is 6,000 square feet, and everyone has a separate office. We sanitize the offices and all the public areas 3 times a day. Front doors locked, deliveries are left out front, cleaned before they're brought in. I've kept less than 10 people in the office since this started, but I'm wondering why I should have to do that and how much longer I'll have to do it with the situation I'm in.
Sure.
What kind of business do you have? I'm just curious.
Yeah.
We're designers.
Okay. Doctor,
And
go
the
ahead.
people that are working at home are not as efficient as they are at the office because they don't have the horsepower computers that we have at the office.
Doctor, what are your thoughts on that?
So, well, thanks for the question. So the recommendations of social isolating are this. We want you to stay at least 6 feet away from people. The further away, if you can stay at home, that's possible. That'd be great. But the reason we need recommending social isolation, recommending people stay in their own office space, wear a mask, is what you don't want to do is be one of these asymptomatic carriers that spreads the virus to someone else. And the best way to avoid that is to avoid contact with individuals. Now, there are certain businesses, such as I'm still a practicing surgeon, or what I'm doing right now with mayor's office, that requires us to go out. But I tell you, I come home when I can. But in short, William, I think if you practice those social distancing abilities, like you said, it sounds like you have a lot of space. People can go in their own offices, close the door. Designing is part of it. That's especially if you're designing houses. That actually is an essential business. And I just encourage you and your colleagues to exercise caution. You will need to do that, frankly, as long as it takes to get a vaccine. Because until we have a vaccine, there will not be like it was, 5 months ago. Because the risk of spread. This is such a new virus. Not one person has been exposed to this virus before they're exposed now. And even there's something called herd immunity, where a lot of people get the virus, and so if you don't have the vaccine or you haven't gotten it, you won't get sick. We're not spread out that much that it causes herd immunity. And if you're healthy and you're young, this may not be that bad for you. But what I worry about it for my own family is my kids or I take it to my parents or my 90-plus-year-old grandmother, and that is the person I worry most about. And that's why all of us have a responsibility to our community.
You said that we're going to have to continue the social distancing and things will not return to normal until we have a vaccine, Doctor. Let me ask you about that, because I think there's a lot of questions about this vaccine talk. When we talk about COVID-19, it's called 19 because that's the year it developed in. And please correct me if I'm wrong. And it's kind of like the flu, I believe, that changes a little bit every year. These coronavirus change a bit. Is that correct? So will a vaccine be able to target what we're experiencing right now?
Well, the problem right now with this specific virus is nobody knows the answer to that question, right? So let me kind of step back with the flu. You're right. Every year the flu changes just a little. That's why every year we get a flu vaccine. COVID, the coronavirus family is a huge family. You have coronaviruses that cause the average cold that you get. There are coronaviruses that cause Middle Eastern Respiratory Syndrome, or MERS, or SARS that we had a few years ago. And so those are certain branches of it that are more dangerous than others. This is unfortunately one of those that are like SARS and MERS. So what makes this one so unique is, unlike MERS and SARS that really you need a camel exposure to or a bird exposure to get, humans to humans can spread this one. And so that is why this one is so different than the other ones. Now, what we don't know about it that I would be curious about is, let's say we move forward into the summer times. Is it going to be like flu that we're going to see a seasonal downturn and then an upturn again? Is it going to be that next year it will come back slightly modified, as you said, and the vaccine will have to be modified? That's why the flu vaccine some years are more effective than other years. So great question. I wish I had the answer to it. I know there's a lot of smart people working on that answer right now.
Yeah, I appreciate your transparency with that. Okay, let's go to Ray, who is on the line. Ray, thank you for calling in. What's your question? Ray, go ahead. The floor is yours. Okay, I think we lost Ray, so we're going to move on to, let's see who I have here. Sam, I believe. Sam, are you on this line?
I'm here.
Great, thank you. Go ahead with your question.
My question is, it's about moving around, opening up the state, the smaller counties. Like I think we can open 86 other counties, but Nashville is going to remain closed. But my question is this: say if I live here in Nashville and I go to work in Sumner County, it's 15, 20 minutes from my house. I'm crossing that border. From where I live in East Nashville, I can go to Wilson County, Sumner County, or Rutherford County in a total of 30 minutes maximum. Aren't we just transferring that disease around? Because if I want to go out to a restaurant and eat in Sumner County, I can take my whole family up there and we'll eat in Sumner County and come back home. In a couple of hours, we're back. So that worries me that we have that much mobility. And I understand people need to go to work. I understand paychecks and all, but that paycheck's not going to do anybody any good if you're 6 feet in the ground. So that's my question: is how are we going to make adjustments for all of the counties that we touch and in a short frame of time and distance? That's my question.
All right, thank you, Sam. And Doctor, you know that Sam brings up a very interesting point, because Davidson County is not reopening like 89 of the other counties in this state, and that kind of puts Davidson County in a predicament in some ways, doesn't it?
Well, Sam, I think you make such a great, just perfect description of the situation, right? Nashville, Davidson County has a population of about 700,000. Our MSA, or the region of people that influence our community, is about 1.9 million. So there are about 1.2 million people that probably don't live in Davidson County, that come to that are driving distance to us, impact our hospitals and other parts of our economy. What Mary Cooper and by proxy I am responsible for the health of is the health of the 700,000 in Davidson County, and we try to use data and science to drive our decisions. You're absolutely right. I understand that my parents live in Williamson County. I can very easily go down there and have a restaurant, but this is where my personal responsibility. I believe that social distancing is critical. I believe, again, I don't want to carry the virus and infect my elder parents and my even older grandmother who's still alive. But it's a very good point. And then the other argument there is obviously the economic impact to Davidson County by having those. So we are a regional city. What I was very proud of, Mayor Cooper was the first in the state to issue a safer at home order. It was an order that then was quickly picked up by our regional mayors, mayors outside of our immediate region and outside of our state. And our hope and our thoughts is, as we start doing what we believe the science shows us right now, which is to let's get our cases steady. Let's make sure our hospitals have capacity, that we do a stage reopening. I know for a fact Mayor Cooper wants to get the city open as quickly as it makes sense. He gets the hardships. He wants Nashville to be open for business. But again, what I've admired about the short time I've had a chance to know him is he's letting the science and the data drive him. And the size of data is showing, I think, what you essentially said, Sam. So thank you.
And we heard today during the Metro briefing that I think that the percentage of cases has actually grown from over the weekend than what we saw late last week. Is that correct?
That's right. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, we added over 300 something cases. I think that's the most we've added in a weekend. I'll tell you, the state also just yesterday added the most single day count of 458, I believe. Now, part of that is we are testing more people, right, and we're picking it up. But it is true. And so what we're looking at are a few metrics, one of which is kind of an average over 14 days. So one good day or one bad day isn't necessarily going to impact us, but we look at the trend. Okay, so we average 14 days, and we ideally like to see it flatter heading downwards. The other thing we're looking at is something called the transmission rate. So ideally, one person should not infect at one more person or more. So ideally, if there's 10 people infected this week, 2 weeks from now, there'll be 9 people infected, and so forth. We're also looking at hospital capacity. You know, we've been fortunate in our city for a lot of reasons, and part of it, maybe luck, frankly, is we haven't had too many hospitalizations and deaths compared to others. But every day we watch the hospitalization rate. I speak with hospital executives daily to make sure that they're doing well, and they're doing great right now. And then we're also just looking at our public health infrastructures. Are we testing enough people? And I'm really proud to say the city of Nashville last week tested 5,000 people, or 4,987 or something. 2,700 of which were in our community assessment centers that the city set up. And the magic number to test is around better for a city 4,500 tests a month, a week or more is the number. So we're doing all that, and then we also make sure we have a strong group of that public health infrastructure. Those people who make those phone calls, and we built up that number very quickly from 4 to upper 40s, and we have a plan to build it up even more over the next week or two. So, but the cases are going up. As long answer to your question.
That's okay. The state releases the number of hospitalizations every day, and I just have a question. Is that current hospitalizations, or is that people who have been hospitalized since we have been tracking this virus? Like today, it was 837 hospitalizations. Are those people currently in beds at hospitals in this state?
You know, I have to look at their numbers. I think that sounds like a total from the beginning. I know we have, I get a daily total from the beginning. We've hospitalized, I think, 140 something people from the moment they started. But I need to check. I'll be honest, I haven't looked at the state's numbers and how they described it in a week or two, so I don't remember that exact number. Seems like a high number to me for one moment in time, but I just don't know with certain.
Okay, very good. We're going to take a quick break, but I know we have lots of folks still on the line. Bill and Latanya and Ann and Teresa and even more. So we're going to get to those calls right after this. Stay with us.